Summary of the 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. The book starts with a countdown to Eddie's death. Eddie is an old, crippled man who works in repair at Ruby Pier, a seaside amusement park. Eddie has always wanted to leave Ruby Pier and start a new life somewhere else, but he has never been able to. One day, Eddie is going about his normal business when he sees a ride called Freddy's Free Fall with a cart that is hanging and looks like it might drop the people in it. Eddie quickly helps the other workers get the people out, but then he sees that the cart is still dropping and a little girl, Amy or Annie, is standing below. Eddie goes to save her, but the cart falls on him and kills him. Eddie goes to heaven, where he passes through many changing colors until he meets the Blue Man, who used to be one of the circus freaks at Ruby Pier a long time ago. The Blue Man tells Eddie that there are 5 important people he will meet in heaven who will each teach him something about his life. The Blue Man says that he turned blue as a child after taking medicine that contained silver nitrate. After that, he lived alone. He tells Eddie that he died because Eddie ran into the road after a lost ball when Eddie was a child. The Blue Man had a heart attack when he tried to avoid hitting Eddie. Eddie learns from the Blue Man that all lives are linked, even those of people he doesn't know. Eddie goes through the colors again and ends up in a familiar fight in the woods. He meets the captain there. The book goes back in time to Eddie's youth, when he chooses to join the military to show how strong he is. Eddie and his unit are being held by the enemy while they are stationed in the Philippines. After a few months, they plan and carry out an escape. Eddie thinks he sees a small shadow moving in one of the huts as he sets fire to the town. He tries to save the person. Then someone shoots him in the leg and knocks him out. He comes back home permanently hurt and angry. The captain tells Eddie in heaven that he was the one who shot him when he was trying to save him from the fire. He also says that he died trying to get his men out of the prison during the escape. Before he leaves, the captain tells Eddie that suffering is an important part of life and that he should look for it instead of being sad about it. Eddie goes on another trip and lands outside a diner in the woods. In the window of the restaurant, he sees his father. In the book, there are flashbacks to Eddie's youth, when he tries to win over his physically abusive and mentally absent father. In heaven, a woman named Ruby shows up and tells Eddie that her husband, Emile, made Ruby Pier for her many years ago. Emile's heart and money were broken when the first Ruby Pier burned down. Then, Emile was in the hospital with Eddie's dying father. Ruby tells Eddie that his father died trying to save his friend Mickey Shea from drowning in a storm at sea, even though Eddie's mother had just been raped by Mickey. Eddie lets go of his anger toward his father after Ruby shows him how to forgive. Next, Eddie ends up in a world full of weddings, where he meets Marguerite, his wife. The book shows Eddie and Marguerite's life from the time they met at Ruby Pier to when they got married and tried to have children. Eddie lost their chances of adopting a child when Marguerite was killed in a car accident while trying to stop Eddie from playing away all their money on his birthday. Marguerite did forgive him in the end, but she soon died of a brain tumor. Eddie feels empty because Marguerite was always the main thing that made him happy, and she gave him the strength to fight through the darkness that took over his life after the war. Marguerite spends a lot of time with Eddie in heaven. She shows him that love is stronger than death. After Marguerite dies, the book goes back in time to Eddie's birthdays, which are all lonely and boring. Eddie's last years are spent missing Marguerite and wishing he had left Ruby Pier to start a new life somewhere else. He thinks that his life had no point. Eddie's last person he meets in heaven is a little girl named Tala. She tells him that Eddie killed her during the war. She was the small shadow he saw moving in the burning hut. Eddie goes into a deep depression. He starts to think that the sadness he has always felt was his fault. Tala then tells Eddie that he made up for what he did by keeping kids safe at Ruby Pier, where he works as a repair worker. Eddie finds peace and goes through heaven until he gets to a Ferris wheel in the sky, where Marguerite is waiting for him.
About the author. Mitch Albom was born in the United States. He was the middle of 3 children and went to Brandeis University. He used to want to be a professional pianist, and after college he did work as a part-time pianist in New York. However, he soon became interested in writing and started working as a freelance sports writer. In the end, he went to Columbia University's journalism school. After Columbia, he worked his way up in sports writing, winning prestigious awards from the Associated Press in 1985. He finally became the lead sports columnist at the Detroit Free Press. Albom also wrote a few sports books, but his big break came in 1995 when he found out that Maury Schwartz, a professor from Brandeis, was dying of ALS. Albom went to see Schwartz in Boston more than once and wrote a book about it called Tuesdays with Maury. Albom was able to pay Schwartz's hospital bills with the money from the book's advance. However, what was supposed to be a small printing run turned into a phenomenon, as Tuesdays with Maury was on the bestseller list for 205 weeks. Albom's next book, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, was a huge hit and came out in 2003, 6 years after Tuesdays with Maury. Since then, he has written for One More Day, 2006, Have a Little Faith, 2009, and The Timekeeper, 2012. His books are known for having themes that give people hope, and they have been on a lot of news and talk shows. Albom is also a good singer and writer of songs. He and his wife, Janine Sabino, live in the city of Detroit.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.